would you allow your wife to be put in that position? I would never put my wife in that position, not for social media, not for money, not for anything.
Has really plateaued and sort of reached their peak. I think a lot of influencers in the US are actually on a journey of self-discovery.
Let's just say this much. The news of Candace Owens' husband filing for divorce didn't land out of nowhere, and for many people, it seemed to line up closely with the increasingly alarming claims Candace herself has been sharing online in recent days. She has been publicly alleging that multiple international and U.S. entities are targeting her, naming the French government, Israeli operatives, and American agencies as part of what she describes as a coordinated effort against her. According to Candace, she has been contacted by someone she claims is a high-ranking French insider who warned her of a supposed plot involving French leadership, elite security units, and foreign operatives. She alleges this source provided documents, identified themselves, and insisted the threat was real. Candace has also tied these claims to broader accusations involving conservative figures, suggesting that sensitive information uncovered by others may have led to serious consequences. She further claims that an anonymous whistleblower email escalated the situation, alleging that U.S. law enforcement agencies were aware of aspects of this supposed plot. Candace maintains that she is sharing this information publicly for her own protection, insisting that if anything happens to her, the truth is already out there.
Email, that checks out. Yeah, Secret Service, the FBI, the DEA being involved, why this plane found something out and it cost him his life. That's the truth.
Before getting any deeper into the allegations, this is where the divorce becomes part of the conversation, because many observers say George Farmer's timing has raised eyebrows. Instead of publicly standing by Candace Owens during what appears to be one of the most chaotic and controversial periods of her career, he is reportedly stepping back, with divorce paperwork allegedly filed and conservative media quietly acknowledging the separation without much detail. To some, that distance feels noticeable. When people look back at how the relationship began, they point to what they describe as a rushed engagement and uneven emotional dynamics that were discussed long before the split. None of that makes the situation entirely surprising to critics. Some also recall an old clip Candace shared in which she claimed Charlie Kirk once advised her against marrying George, allegedly suggesting that donors believed the relationship could negatively impact her public image. Whether fair or not, those past comments are now being revisited as the marriage appears to unravel.
And then one of the donors to Turning Point USA was telling him it would be very bad for my brand. And that really stuck with me, that one of the donors said, it would be very bad for your brand for you to not marry a black guy from the projects or something like that.
That's right.
Yeah, that clip definitely hits differently now. But the divorce isn't even the biggest issue Candace is dealing with at the moment. While all of this is unfolding, she's also facing serious pushback from within her own political circles. Instead of unified support, criticism is coming from people who were once considered allies. At a Turning Point USA related event, Pastor John Amanuku publicly condemned her, using extremely harsh language and accusing her of being dangerous and spiritually corrupt. According to reports, he even addressed George Farmer directly in front of an audience, urging him to intervene and tell Candace to stop what she was doing. For many watching, that moment signaled just how isolated she's become.
Against Erica Kirk, his wife, you have to be cruel and demonic to insinuate the things that she has insinuated over the past several weeks. She's evil. Some point, her husband is going to have to walk into that podcast room and start unplugging cords. By now, I would have already done it if it was my wife.
According to people who say they were in the room, the atmosphere at the event felt less like a religious gathering and more like an outpouring of anger aimed squarely at Candace, with little focus on faith or unity. As criticism intensified, supporters online claimed the attacks only seemed to strengthen her resolve, with some fans posting extreme messages expressing fear for her safety. Notably, mainstream outlets have largely avoided covering these reactions or the broader controversy. What many say escalated the situation further was a new round of alleged leaks that surfaced shortly after Candace made claims involving French leadership. Project Veritas released messages it says are authentic, allegedly showing discussions by individuals connected to powerful political figures about plans to discredit Candace before she could share more information. The texts reportedly included statements about urgently damaging her reputation. Representatives for those named have denied the authenticity of the messages, though no lawsuits have been filed against Project Veritas over their release. That silence has fueled speculation online. As the controversy continued to spiral, Candace intensified her rhetoric, making another highly inflammatory statement that drew widespread backlash and concern. Altogether, supporters and critics alike agree the situation has moved far beyond a personal dispute and into a full-scale political and media firestorm.
I think it's important to share that information, as Kanye sent me all of the messages of people who were threatening him. I have them all. To information share with Max Blumenthal, with people, people all over the place.
When you zoom out, the situation starts to look less like isolated controversy and more like overlapping pressure from every direction, at least according to Candace's own claims. She has referenced a whistleblower email that allegedly names U.S. agents, accusations that foreign governments approved threats against her, supposed international involvement, and connections to U.S. justice agencies through leaked warnings. At the same time, she's facing public condemnation from a pastor, intense criticism from former allies, and now a reported separation from her husband. What surprised many observers most was Candace suddenly bringing Kanye West into the conversation, claiming he shared messages and materials with her to safeguard in case anything ever happened to him, further amplifying the sense of escalating stakes.
You were born a man and you will die a man. That's the point I'm making. So give us a sample. I'll send my doctors to take your blood. Figure it out real quick. I will see you in court.
When someone as controversial and guarded as Kanye West, who has long claimed powerful industries are working against him, allegedly decides to entrust someone else with sensitive material for protection, it raises questions about the circles Candace has been operating in. It suggests a shared sense of paranoia, fear, or distrust among public figures who believe they are under threat. Before those connections are fully unpacked, Candace also reignited controversy involving Brigitte Macron at the exact same time news of a lawsuit surfaced. After the French First Lady reportedly took legal action, Candace responded with an inflammatory statement questioning Brigitte's identity and making it clear she intended to fight the matter in court, escalating tensions even further.
We met, we shook hands, and I just knew, when I met her, I was like, this is a woman who, she just commanded a power. Nothing romantic was said, between that day and the day that we got engaged, nothing romantic was said at all. There was no overtures.
He said that they never went on any dates, never shared anything romantic. It was like,
when you line everything up chronologically, many observers say the situation feels less like ordinary political controversy and more like a series of escalating events colliding at once. It began with Candace making claims about Brigitte Macron, followed by a lawsuit and an even stronger public response from Candace. Soon after, she alleged that a French insider warned her of serious threats. Then news broke that her husband had filed for divorce. Around the same time, a pastor publicly condemned her. Alleged leaks surfaced that were said to be connected to powerful U.S. figures, and Candace expanded her claims to include foreign governments and intelligence interests. She has also continued to reference past controversies involving conservative figures, suggesting that certain incidents were not random. Central to all of this is the timing of the divorce. George Farmer comes from elite political circles closely tied to Candace's career, and their fast-moving relationship has long drawn attention. Now, old clips and comments about their engagement are being re-examined through a very different lens.
Judaism is a faith, Israel is a state, and it is not above critique, and that what Bibi Netanyahu has done to the Palestinians since October 7th is a Holocaust.
Looking back at old clips, many viewers are now reinterpreting how George Farmer once described his relationship with Candace, noting that he said they never really dated in a traditional sense and rarely shared openly romantic moments, which has led some fans to describe the marriage as feeling more strategic than personal. That framing has fueled online speculation that the relationship resembled a political partnership rather than an emotional bond, and critics argue marriages that begin under that kind of pressure rarely survive prolonged political turmoil. When reports surfaced that George had filed for divorce, people began connecting those dots, questioning why he appeared to step away rather than publicly defend her during one of the most turbulent periods of her career. To some observers, that distance suggested concern not just about her claims, but about the potential fallout they could trigger. Candace's recent rhetoric has reportedly alarmed donors and political allies as she began naming governments and intelligence agencies, accusations that carry global implications. Insiders have claimed that discomfort around her direction had been growing quietly for months, long before the most explosive allegations went public, suggesting the separation was not sudden but building beneath the surface. At the same time, Candace appeared increasingly isolated within conservative spaces where she once thrived, with fewer invitations, muted support, and visible distance from influential figures. When she was publicly condemned at a major conservative event, the lack of defense from leadership struck many as telling. Independent journalists she referenced also appeared to face reduced visibility online, fueling claims of coordinated distancing. As her support network thinned, Candace doubled down on controversial positions, including sharply criticizing the Israeli government while distinguishing between religious faith and state power, language that divided even he. This was the moment many commentators say the situation fundamentally changed. Within conservative media spaces, Israel is widely viewed as a political third rail, and once Candace made pointed remarks separating religious faith from state actions, backlash spread rapidly. Influential creators publicly labeled her reckless, misinformed, and even dangerous, language often associated with distancing someone from mainstream political coalitions. That response intensified after Candace suggested that any harm to her would be connected to ideological actors, a claim that many viewed as crossing from criticism into personal threat territory. From that point on, observers say she was no longer treated as a controversial voice, but as a potential liability, someone whose statements could destabilize alliances. Candace then escalated matters further by linking her concerns to the death of Charlie Kirk, a figure she had previously described as extremely close to her. When she read a whistleblower email on camera, viewers noted a shift in tone that felt emotional rather than performative. She alleged a pattern involving multiple agencies, governments, and warnings, insisting these events were connected. Supporters began noticing changes in her behavior, including slower speech, more careful phrasing, and frequent references to private conversations she claimed to have received. Her public expressions of distrust toward American institutions marked a sharp break from her earlier messaging. Meanwhile, alleged leaks, denials, and online backlash fueled speculation, while former allies, including religious leaders, influencers, and political commentators, either criticized her openly or quietly distanced themselves. Insiders in conservative political circles have claimed she was privately urged to tone things down, that tensions in her marriage were strategic rather than personal, and that she may be withholding additional information out of fear. What continues to stand out to many observers is the timing of George Farmer's departure, which reportedly came only after Candace began accusing powerful global actors of threatening her. To supporters, the pattern looks like isolation. To critics, it looks like escalation. Either way, the convergence of backlash, silence, and separation has left many questioning whether this is merely political fallout or something far more consequential unfolding in real time.